Okay, so anyways, so we're taking one step further with exponential. So the exponential equation is y equals a parentheses 1, that's a 1, okay? It's either plus or minus, depending on whether it's growth or decay. So you have to decide, are you adding in that problem or are you subtracting? And then your r to the t, okay? So if you remember, this is the equation that we started working on yesterday. Now, a couple of things, because there's so many different letters, what do all of these letters stand for? Does anyone remember the A? What word did that stand for? Read. Y-intercept. Yeah, your y-intercept, which is basically your initial amount. Because you're going to have a lot of word problems, they're not going to say in the word problem, the y-intercept is 2. No, they're going to say like you start off with. So your initial amount, how much you start off with. Okay, your R is going to be, what? Yes. So rate of change, which is basically your, sure, I'll just write rate. So like the percentage, but remember you always change it to a decimal. And then the T stands for time, but remember time is always in years. So if it's if it is in months, then you just do it like over 12. You write it as a fraction over 12. So that's basically what we talked about yesterday. Okay, so let's do this. The inaugural or attendance of an annual music festival is 20,000 people. The attendance increases by 5% each year. So let's write the function. The function is just the equation. So let's just write the equation after t years. Okay, so I'm not solving anything. I'm just writing this equation. So I have y equals a. So Reed said that a was your starting off number. What is your starting off number here? 20,000, right? You started off with 20,000 people and then parentheses 1. Okay, so it's either plus or minus. It can't be both. So is it a plus or is it a minus? What do you think, Owen? Plus. Why? Because it says increases. So normally your keyword is if it says increases, it's plus. If it says decreases, it's minus. Your R is your rate. Grayson, what number is my rate here? 0.05. Thank you for saying 0.05. It's not 5, right? So you always have to take your 5, your percent, and then move it backwards twice to become a decimal. Okay, so it's 0.05, and then to the T, they didn't tell me the time, but they just want me to like figure out what is the equation. So boom, that's my equation. That's all for letter A. Just know how to write it, know what these letters stand for. So now letter B then, it says, how many people will attend the festival in the 5th year? So in my 5th year, I'm plugging in 5 for what letter here? The T, right? So, okay, so I have y equals 20,000 parentheses 1 plus 0.05 to the T, which is the 5th power. Guys, you have a calculator. You really should not be doing anything other than putting this in your calculator, okay? The biggest thing you need to realize with your calculator is you have to type it exactly as you see it, okay? If it says parentheses, do parentheses. If it says exponents, do exponents, okay? So I would be typing in 20,000 parentheses 1 plus 0.05. Like if you really want to write 1.05 in the parentheses, sure. But I mean, why go through that extra effort? And then to the 5th power. So do you see how I'm literally typing it in exactly as you see it? Did someone get this answer yet? Grayson?
Well, it said rounded against 1,000.
Yeah.
So it would be 26,000.
Yeah. So do you see how it's actually like, you can't see, 25,525? Well, it says round to near 1,000. Thank you for reading the direction. So that rounds to 26,000 because it's the 525 makes it bump up. So I would say it's about 26,000 people. Hey, by the way, guys, this right here is not an equal sign. When it looks like this, that means about. Like it's not exactly equal to 26,000. It's about 26,000. So that would be my answer. Okay, so hopefully we can do that by ourselves today. That's the most basic of what we learned. Now let's get a little bit more complicated. So determine whether the table represents an exponential growth, exponential decay, or neither. So basically we have to find the pattern. So on the top, +1, +1, +1. Great. So I'm able to find the pattern because I have a pattern up top. Now take a look at your bottoms. Someone online, do you think you know what the pattern is? Someone online? Yoo-hoo.
Multiply by 5.
Thank you. So 7 times 5 is 35 times 5 times 5. Guys, I honestly wouldn't just say 7 times 5 is 35. I would actually double check that it all equals times 5. So that's times 5. That's also times 5. So it looks like it is times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, so it's times 5. I found the pattern. Yay. I still don't know the answer. Someone in person, do you think you know which one it is then? Vaughn?
It's exponential growth because there is a common ratio and it's
Okay. So it's exponential growth because of two reasons. The first reason Vaughn said is because there's a common ratio. That's the same thing as saying multiply pattern. Okay, so you can write either one. You can write CR for common ratio, or you can spell it out, or just say multiply pattern. But it's not just exponential growth because it's a multiply pattern. It's exponential because it's a multiply pattern. But it's growth, so you also have to write the other reason. And it's growth and not decay, because look, your numbers are getting bigger. And your numbers are getting bigger. So if your numbers were getting smaller, it would be decay, right? But since your numbers are going from 7 to 35 to 175 to 800, then it's getting bigger. So it would be growth and not decay. So you have to have those both answers, okay? All right, number 3 and 4, write a function that represents the balance after t years. You kind of learned about this last year, but it has been a while, and you kind of have a new formula, okay? So let's write this formula down maybe at the bottom, okay? So the formula is A equals P, like you see how you have completely different letters here? P, parentheses, 1 plus. So this is the interest formula that you learned last year. The only difference is that you have R over N, not just R, like how you had last year, but it's R over N as a fraction to the N times T. Okay, so let's talk about this. Yes, Reed?
The teacher on the video notes used different letters, right?
I think the teacher on the video notes is me.
Yeah. Well, he used different letters.
I did?
No? Okay. How does that?
I don't know. Sorry. But okay. So if I use different letters, then just listen right now. I mean, they all are the same thing though. So A would be your total, okay? Not just the interest, but your final total, your final amount. Your P stands for still your starting point. Your starting point is called your principal, or really it's like your y-intercept, your initial amount. Your R still stands for your rate, written as a decimal. Your T still stands for time. Okay, this is the new one that all the kids always forget about, the N. Does anyone remember from yesterday? What does the N stand for? Yes, Rowan?
It is the number of times it's counted a year.
So number of times per year. So if I were to say annually, that's 1 time a year. Biannually, bi means 2, right? That's 2 times a year. Quarterly, that's how many times a year? 4. Monthly, that's how many times a year? 12. Good. So you have to read daily, 365, right? So you have to remember. But everyone always forgets the N part. Like on a test, they're all like, what's N? What's N? And I'm like, it's the number of times per year. Okay. So it just says write the function. We're not solving anything. We're just writing the equation. All right. So I have number 3, A equals P. Boom, boom, boom. So what number is P? 2000. That's my principal. That's how much I started off with. Parentheses. 1 plus R. What is R? Thank you. 0.05. Always written as a decimal. Over N. How many times a year? 4. Quarterly, right? Quarter is 4. There's 4 quarters in a game. There's 4 quarters in a dollar. To the N times T. So N was 4, we said. Times T, it doesn't say because we're not solving it. They just told us to write it, right? So like that. So how much does this account have after 10 years? Oh, now I can plug in 10. Which letter am I plugging in 10 for? The T. Okay. So when you plug this in, you are typing it in as one long sentence exactly as you see it. So you have 2000 parentheses 1 plus. Okay, that's a fraction. So write alpha y equals enter. Right? You're typing it as a fraction. 0.05 over 4. Get out of that fraction. So do you see how it literally looks like the problem that I set up? Do not change it or simplify it or overcomplicate it. To the 4 times t, which we said was 10. Did anyone online get this answer? It's something in the 3000s.
And our lockdown drill. Everyone did a great job. Please let your teachers know if you have any questions.
Okay, anyone online? It's something in the 3000s. What'd you get on your calculator? Yoo-hoo. Anyone there? You guys are gonna make your teacher cry. Do you really want to see the tears coming down my cheeks?
Cooper.
Cooper. Cooper.
Cooper.
3,000.
Cooper better answer.
You did. No, you did the
Yeah.
All right, did anyone in person do this? Save me from my sadness. Tessa, go.
3,287.
Okay, so yes, you're right. 3,287 point, a lot of numbers, but this is money, right? So if this is money, then it would be how many cents?
24.
24 cents, because the 8 bumps up the 3 to the 24, so 24 cents. Okay, and that would be it. Okay, one more thing. Take out your level work, guys. Something that you guys are, I feel like still a little bit confused on. I feel like everything on your level work is doable. But then on numbers like 1, 2, and 3, you kind of get confused here. Okay, so let me show you this. For number 1, you have to identify the initial amount A, the rate of growth, and then the exponent, and then evaluate. Okay, so let's do that. Your initial amount, what do we think? What number is your initial amount here? 220, right? That's how much you start off with. It's always the number outside the parentheses. Okay, so hopefully that's not too bad. Your rate of growth, that's the one that everyone always gets confused on. What is your rate of growth, Vaughn? Close, but not 15%. Very close. You just made a silly mistake. Yeah. So do you see how this is your rate of growth? Because this is a 1 plus what equals 1.015. They basically added it together. So then really they're saying it's 1 plus 0.015, but then you have to change it to a decimal. So it's 1.5%. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay. So then it asks you to evaluate. Evaluate just means to solve. So when t is 5, so f of 5, plug in 5. So all you're doing is you're going to type in 220 parentheses 1.015 to the 5th power. Like you're just typing in 5 into your calculator. Then you would have $237, or it's not money. It's just 237. And it says round to the nearest 10th. Well, it's 0.00, so 237. Ashlyn, did you have a question?
Yes. How did you get the 5?
Because it says right here, t equals 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so like for this one, this is tricky. What is your A? Someone says 1.5, someone says 1, someone says 2.5. 5.5? We're on this one.
Oh, 2.5.
A equals 1.
Yeah, 1.
So your original formula is y equals a 1 plus blank to the t, right? There's no parentheses here, but your a is always outside the parentheses.
3.5.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the 2.5 is supposed to be in parentheses. They wouldn't combine this because PEMDAS doesn't tell you to multiply before you exponent. PEMDA tells you to exponent first, then you would multiply. So they would never combine these two to be a different number. Okay, so your A is actually 1. Okay, so your R, that's tricky, is how many percent? 3? No, not 15. 100 what? 150. How did you get 150? Because you are absolutely correct.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Add one.
Do you see how this right here in the parentheses, they wrote it as 2.5? So 1 plus what equals 2.5? 1.5. So do you see how Luke got 150% there? 1 plus 1.5 equals a 2.5. So you kind of have to think backwards there. And then your T, you would just plug it in as 5. I'm not going to do it with you right now because let's hop down to number 6. Now it's even more complicated because, well, let's not do number 6. Let's do number 7 because that's even harder. Okay, so let's find the A. What number is the A here? 1 because it's outside your parentheses. Okay, hopefully that's easy. Okay, your rate of change, I don't even know what 3/5 is. Okay, so let's change 3/5 into a decimal. 3/5 is 0.6. Okay, so instead of writing 3/5, I'm gonna write 0.6. It's easier with a decimal. All right, what is my rate of change? Don't say 60%. I heard someone say 40. Do we agree or disagree?
It would be 40.
It would be 40. Because do you see how here I have y equals a 1 minus, and do you see why it's minus this time? Because it's less than 1. So 1 minus r to the t power. So if the entire parentheses was 0.6, 1 minus what is 0.6? 1 minus 0.4 gives you the 0.6. That's why 0.4, switching it over, would be 40%. And then when this time they're asking for t equals 3. So you'll be finding f of 3 and that. So like for this one, instead of writing 1/3, what decimal can you change it to? Just write 0.33. And I know it's repeated, but just write 0.33. Okay, so give it a shot. All right, you have this level work to do. It looks like your video notes. So maybe take out your video notes to reference off of, okay? And then your homework is this puzzle worksheet that none of you will cheat off of, like you 6th grade kids told me that you would have. Do you see the puzzle worksheet on there on the blue counter? There's not too much work to show. All the answers are on the side, but I still want you to try it, okay? So please actually try it because this is good practice, okay? All right.